3, 2, 1. We are live. Welcome to the Prefessional podcast episode 2. So we're going to follow up with where we ended last time. And now I'm going to talk about the new raid that was released, the new Mythic season, and kind of how things have gone. So I'm just going to jump. First, I want to cover the loot system before I jump into the raid. So I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about the loot system, when it was first implemented. But after thinking about it and now seeing it in action, I actually like this more than the Season 1 loot system. And I'm going to explain why. So it reminds me of the old days. And I'm going to throw up the chart here just so you guys can see it if you're watching. But in the old days, like I don't know when it changed, but I know back at least to Kata and Wrath, you would gear up by running dungeons. The dungeons, then you would go to heroics. You would obtain that gear, then you would finally go to the raids, and then you would use each raid's gear in order to capitalize and prepare you for the next raid. Well, when I came back to DragonFlight, Season 1 was not like that. And it was basically, you could start off in like a Mythic 2, right? And you could obtain gear at that Mythic level. And then once you got to, you would grind dungeons, you could upgrade that to max level. So 2 out of 13, you could just completely grind away and take that level 2 item all the way to 13. And I didn't like that. Now I know part of it was like locked behind your Mythic Plus rating. So like you couldn't upgrade it without, obtaining a certain level there. But I didn't really like that system because it just didn't feel, I don't know. It didn't feel very progressive, I guess. I don't know how else to really describe it. So when they announced this new system, I was kind of like, it seems kind of like an inconvenience, but honestly, I really like this because it reminds me of that old tier system. So you start off, and if you're just questing, you get the Explorer and the Adventurer, and that's it. Like, once you hit the top tier in that, you can't go any further. It doesn't matter how much you grind in that area, you can't go any further. You have to progress to the next area in order to be able to upgrade it. And I really do like that. So once I started getting the purple pieces and I maxed out, I think I maxed out one of my purple pieces, I realized what it kind of was. And now I actually think this item system is a lot better. I still don't agree with how the currency operates. They need to definitely change it up as far as, making the currencies and stuff account bound. Because the flight stones, it says it's bound to your account, but I'm not sure. You can't like trade them. Not like you really need to because you get so many of them, it doesn't really matter. I'm constantly at the cap. But like the Shadow Flame, like the crests, you should be able to trade those between all of your characters. That's just my personal opinion on that. I could talk about that like on a whole episode on itself, and I probably will actually cover that in a later video. But let's see. So what else do I want to talk about here? Not just the loot system. Just, final thought, I do like the new loot system. I think it's actually much better. So let's talk about the new Mythics, because I ran a couple of the new Mythic Plus dungeons, and overall, it's going to take some getting used to. So before the reset, I was running, what keys was I getting? I was getting like 15 keys, which was, I wanted to hit the 1500 for my Season 1. Just because this was my first time really playing and my first time really actually, getting into Mythic Plus dungeons. So I was happy with my 1500. This season, I'm going over 2K. But I noticed when I got my new key, like I said, my keys I was getting was consistently like plus 15. It was plus 15, 14, 16, like around that area. Well, the new key that I got for Season 2 knocked it all the way down to number 3. And I didn't realize it was that much of a jump. I wasn't expecting it to be that much of a jump. What did I run? I ran Underrot, which was an interesting battle. I think we wiped a few times on like the mushroom guy, but that's just primarily because I really had no idea what the mechanics were in the dungeon. And the other people with me didn't know either. So it was kind of like running in blindly. Still timed it and completed it, but we had a few wipes. It just took a few minutes to understand it. And then the other one, I ran one more. What was the other dungeon? It was the one underneath of Wrathion and Zabellin's area. Neltharis? I think it's Neltharis. I think that's the name of it, it's Neltharis. Anyway, it has the Desjardins people in there. You fight the mammoth boss. Overall, that wasn't where I ran that one already on the normal while I was leveling, and then like the heroic I did a couple. Not a huge deal there. So far, I think everything felt tuned. I know a lot of people have been complaining about a couple of the dungeons, saying that they're like extremely overtuned, and some of them have been capped off, like they haven't been able to run higher than an 18. Like even with like the top Mythic Plus teams not being able to complete it. So they have to do, you know, they have to fix that. And I'm sure they will. That'll probably be the next hot fix on Tuesday's maintenance. But aside from just kind of getting a feel for like the, you know, the new mechanics, the new dungeons and things like that, it seemed like the jump was pretty decent. I'll say, I think after I completed my level 3 key, when was my level 3 key? I can't remember. I think my level 3 key, I think was Underrot. And then it immediately jumped to level 7 after that. And then I ran, or maybe it was like a level 5. And then I ran Jesus. Nelthar, whatever it is. The one with Jardin and the guy with the anvil and things like that. It jumped up to number 7. So I didn't feel like I was taking like a whole lot of heavy damage. So I don't know if it just like overcompensated and dropped my key really, really low. But I mean, I was still able to consistently tank like really successfully. And for those of you out there that are trying to get into tanking, I'm actually going to do a podcast on tanking, just tanking specifically, because it's such a popular topic. And I see a lot of people talk about and ask questions. They're like, you know, what do I do in order to get into tanking? You know, how do I start tanking mythics? How do I start raid tanking? You know, what are the details with that? And I actually made a video in regards to like the basics of tanking and getting started, but I have quite a bit to say on that. And I'm going to do a podcast on that at some point in the near future. It's on my to-do list. It's written down. Not sure what the episode number is on that yet. But overall, jumped right into it tanking. I didn't have much of an issue. Like I said, it was more so just understanding the mechanics. And then my keys have already progressed up to 7. I ran like 3 or 4 mythics. Not super lucky with loot yet. I have not completely true. I have a couple pieces, but I don't want to break my four-piece set on my season 1 tier. So that's why it's kind of waiting. Once the new catalysts come out and I can create my new tier gear, then I'll actually have quite a few upgrades. It's just more so I don't want to break out my 4-piece. So let's talk about the raid. Oh, no, I do want to mention one more thing with that mythics, and that was the difference that they did with the HP and the damage. I mentioned it in the last one. Blizzard changed. They increased everybody's HP and increased the damage from the mobs. I did not see any difference. I am not a healer though, so I can't say if it's like actually impacted, you know, the overall state of the game or not. But as far as like with my HP and damage difference, I haven't noticed any difference when tanking. It's still operating the exact same way to me. So let's talk about the new raid. Now, I have not done normal yet. I've only done LFR. I did wing 1. I did it on my hunter and I did it on my tank. I plan on doing normal mode probably this weekend at some point. I'm going to probably start it this weekend late at night, or I might start it first thing next week. Anyway, thoughts on the new raid. At least the first wing. And the first wing was Kazara, it was the Chamber, and then it was the Forgotten Experiments. A+ raid. Like A+. I'm trying to think if there was any issues I had. I think maybe one of the only issues I had with the Forgotten Experiments was the arena, because the arena color was still kind of matching some of the ability colors, and it made it a little bit harder to see. But I felt like Kazara... I felt Kazara was actually a really good fight. I like that fight a lot. It's the mechanics in the first 3 bosses are not overwhelming. Like when I came back to Shadowlands and ran the raids, there were so many different mechanics and so many different types of things going on that it was literally a nightmare. Like you have to have like an add-on, like your add-ons are just screaming at you consistently. And there's so much shit going on the screen that it was really difficult to see and to actually play the game. And with DragonFlight coming out, I felt like the Vault of the Incarnates was not like that. I'm trying to think. My biggest complaint with the Vault of the Incarnates was the arenas, because Dithea and Senareth were like perfect examples of this. The arena would be like a blue, and then when they're doing their abilities, the markers are blue. So it made the fight just difficult only because of the visual, the visuals. So I thought that the fights themselves were actually pretty well done. I didn't think any of them were too like overly mechanical, aside from maybe like the Primal Council, but that was just more so, again, like a visibility type of thing. If it had been more spread out and easier to see, they might not have been that big of a deal. But talking about Aberrus, okay, Kazara, the Chamber, and the Forgotten Experiments were like A+. A+. Kazara was a lot of fun. I tanked and I did DPS on all three of them. And yeah, really, really rewarding. Kazara was somewhat challenging on normal, not on LFR. On LFR is just LFR. LFR is very, very simple, very easy. There's an obvious difficulty spike when it comes to normal. But overall, still a really good and fun fight. Let me think. The Chamber is another one. You're dealing with 2 adds, but there's so much space. The attacks and abilities don't blend into the arena. They're all very easy to see. And everything's clearly marked. Like, stay out of this and you need to soak this. Like, I just want to say it. Like, I feel like I don't need DBM to play, to do the first 3 bosses. I don't feel like you need an add-on for it. Like, I'm just going to say it, like, right out. Maybe Kazara's breath attack is a little, isn't as noticeable. Like, there's not a whole lot of time with it. But all the other bosses, well, okay, so the Shadow Flame guy, after he does his withering attack on a tank, he immediately casts a shockwave, and the off tank has to then taunt. There's not a whole lot of reaction time there, so you actually have to be really quick and paying attention. But I still think it's kind of projected pretty nicely. Honestly, yeah. Thinking about it, Kazara's deep breath I think is the only one that doesn't, that might be a little confusing to actually see, because even going to the Forgotten Experiments, I can't think of the first guy's name. What is the first guy? It's like Neldris. Give me just a second. It's like Neldris. I'm pulling up his name because I don't want to say it wrong. Yeah, Neldris. So with Neldris, he has like a rending charge ability, but he advertises it like so well because he stops and then like poses like he's going to charge for a solid like 1.5 seconds. It's long enough that you can definitely see it. The second guy, Thadrion, I think maybe the only thing, he was the one that I was talking about as far as the visuals. The Violent Eruption and the Volatile Spew, they kind of blend into the arena. That is the only boss I can think of that actually has the mechanics that are hard to see just because of the arena color. So excluding him, then who's the third one is Ryanthus. He has the deep breath attack advertised really well. It doesn't give you a whole lot of time to like react, because once he posts up, then like within 1 second, he's doing his deep breath, which is pretty much fatal. But overall, I mean, he advertises it great. He jumps, if you keep him in the middle of the arena, he jumps to a far side and you pretty much know what's going on when he jumps like that. The only other thing is like the temporal anomaly where he has like the cube or the balls that you have to knock away, they can be a little bit difficult to see, but they still stick out. They don't blend into the background of the arena. That's more so just like the issue with like everybody else. You know, all the other spell effects and shit that are going on. So I like the Forgotten Experiments as far as the tank mechanics, because the tank mechanics were extreme. It was very, very different. Like, I know when I tanked Vault, there was really there was nothing that mechanically inclined. Like, tanking was just fairly simple. It was, you know, just grab this guy, taunt, grab this guy, taunt, grab this guy, taunt. I liked the infused strikes because it was something you had to actually keep track of. It added a lot more difficulty and a lot more enjoyment from a tanking perspective. But overall, so range-wise, I had fun playing on my Hunter in the Aberrus. You were able to see everything. Everything's nicely telegraphed. And then when I went and tanked it, and it was the same thing. I was able to jump right into it. My eye level on my tank was, my eye level on my Hunter is like 395, or it was. I ended up getting a tier piece for my Hunter and then something else. I had better drops on my Hunter than I did on my Death Knight. But then when I ran on my Death Knight, I think I got one piece of gear. I got a tier piece. I did get a tier piece on my Death Knight, actually, now that I think about it. But it was really, really enjoyable. Not only as the DPS, but as the tank. So overall, I'll have more thoughts on the rest of the wing next week. Like I said, I'm going to tank normal either this weekend, or I'm going to jump into it like the first part of next week. I want to get a couple normal bosses down before the reset. And depending on my work schedule, I'm going to try to get a majority of the bosses down from normal. I'm just going to pug it. So if anybody plays on my server cluster, I'm on Staghelm. I don't know what other servers are with that. If you are interested in running a raid with me, I'm just going to pug it, and I'm going to see what we can do. I'm in a guild, but they raid late at night. I don't raid late at night. So my main raid time is during the day. And, yeah, so I'm gonna set up a pug. I think I'm gonna actually do a video on that too, just to show like the experience of it and to see how it goes. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. I don't think they really did any huge changes. If they did, I didn't really pay attention to them, honestly. It was more so just kind of, I was really excited this week because of the new raid and the new season 2 for the Mythics. What are you guys' thoughts on the new raid? How many other bosses have you downed? Have you jumped into Heroic yet? And what about the new loot system? How are you guys feeling about that? Oh, yeah, I want to talk about Fyrakks Assault, the world event. So I did participate in that. It was actually part of the weekly event this week. It was one of my weeklies, and pretty cool. I think it's it was really unexpected. I wasn't sure what to expect, other than like just kind of like a boring mob grind. But it was actually really enjoyable. More so just the fact of there's a lot of people in the zones because it's new and because it was the weekly. But seeing Fyrakks like swoop in and summon a dragon, Fyrakks is massive. Like, he's huge. I think one of the biggest complaints I had with Razagath is for being like the big baddie. She was really small because she was just like the proto Drake. But I feel like Fyrakks looks just like a proto Drake, like the model. But dude, he's so massive. He reminds me of Deathwing. Like, that's the scale on size. He's smaller than Deathwing, but like he actually feels like a decently sized boss. So I'm super, super psyched about that. If you haven't done that event, try it out, because it's a lot of fun, and it's cool seeing Fyrakks like fly in and then summon a big ass dragon that you have to fight. So yeah, so that's it for this one. Nice, quick, short episode 2 podcast. Gonna jump into a little more. I'll have more experience with the Mythics and with the raids next week. So, like I said, I'm gonna get my normal runs in, start getting some more gear, and then hopefully I'd like to have my Season 2 mythic level close to 1,000 before the end of this week. We'll see how things go. But yeah, go ahead and jump into it. What are your guys' thoughts on the new Mythic Plus season? How do you like the dungeons other than the overtuned encounters? What about the new raid? How are you enjoying it? Have you played it? Are you going to play it? I'm actually uploading a video as I'm doing this podcast covering the first wing, the first 3 bosses. That video will be up and live. Probably going to post this tomorrow. So that video is already live. I'll link that down in the description or in the comment down below if you want to check that out. So, all right, that's a wrap. That's episode 2. I'll see you guys in the next one.